Hello, everyone. I'm here again, Selva Pankaj, and this particular service I call myself hashtag Regent Pankaj, and I'm here to sort of talk about another lesson today, and this lesson is going to be around the whole concept of my interest in the concept of bridging the gap. What are those gaps we are talking about? One side, we are learning a lot of knowledge, and the other side, we are not delivering our results. And then we call it in our research, which is the bridging gap, which is the knowing and doing. And let me sort of take a piece from my book, and it'll be quite good for you to go and read the book. The ebook is available on TIC platform, and please go and read that. And then let me start off with, if you want to change your results, you need to think in a different way and change your habits. So if you want to change the results, the only way to do that is to change our habits. Habits are the cause and the results are the effect. The cause and effect, we've told many times about this concept. So the cause and effect is the basic theory of physics: action, reaction, cause and effect. If you really want to change the results, the only way to go and do that is you must go and change the cause. This is the basic law of creation. Every cause has its effect. And whilst we are in this topic of knowing and doing gap, and let me just remind you about something Mahatma Gandhi who said, and we all can learn a lot from him. Mahatma Gandhi said that by bridging the gap between what we do and what we are capable of doing, what we do and what we are capable of doing, we could solve most of the world's problems. He solved a massive problem in India, and he gave the independence from India, and he was able to go and talk to the British to go and do that. Most ailing organizations, and that's where perhaps I'm going to spend a bit of time today, have developed a functional blindness to their own defects. So let me repeat that again. Most ailing organizations have developed a functional blindness to their own defects. Just think about that. I mean, we know some of these problems and issues. Then we say, how do we deal with this? And I think I just wanted to say this is all to do with individual and collective paradigms. So the paradigm is a mental program that has almost control over our habitual behavior. Almost all of our behaviors are habitual. So the environment made a big part in what we do. And as Branson says, looking back, I believe that the qualities that make for a great entrepreneur, such as boundless energy, a curiosity, sometimes an obstinate stick. So let's sort of take it forward by talking more about this knowing and doing gap. And as we said many times, in order for us to understand the knowing and doing gap, we need to understand who we are and what we do. And I just want to draw this diagram here. This is us. And I have said in my previous lesson, this is our mind, and we have a conscious mind, we have a subconscious mind, and we've got the body. And the conscious mind, as we have said before, has got the sensory factors, and which also have the intellectual capacity in there. The subconscious mind is completely deductive. And if we want to change our results, within the subconscious mind, we have got paradigms, which I talked about, and we can call it also habits. These paradigms are just programmed into us, and which will only do the way the paradigm wanted us to do. And these habits, just think about some simple examples. This paradigm came out of two things, what we want to talk about. So the paradigm comes from our DNA, how we were born, and the other thing is our environment. So the environment we grew up, basically, it's who we are now. Because we are programmed in very young age on this subconscious mind by our paradigms. And if you want to change results, and let's go back and talk about that, once ideas goes into the subconscious mind, once certain things are, you unconsciously do that. And I'll give you some example in a minute. And that unconsciousness creates an action. And then action then creates a reaction. I think you're not able to see, so let me push this forward here. And then here you will have the reaction that will give you the results. So that's the action, reaction, and that's what we also talk about, the idea of cause and effect. So it's very important to understand that. So therefore, if you really want the results here, all we got to do is get this action. And how do you do the action? We'll have to go back to our subconscious mind. And then let's think about some of these ideas which is sitting on our subconscious mind, and that it'll make sense to us what we are really talking about. Learning a language. So I was born in Sri Lanka and I learned a language, and I speak a language called Tamil. And that I learned without conscious awareness. But now, coming over to England, when I was 20, and I've been here for 30 years now, obviously I still remember the language. I'm able to read and write and do various things, but I didn't have a choice whether I wanted to learn English, Tamil or not at that age. And I learned, so let's say the Tamil was here, then I learned English on top of it. But now, and let's compare that to a habit, and it's not entirely correct, but it's a way of explaining that. And now let's compare that to a habit of me doing a particular thing, a habit of thinking about a particular thing. And I compare that to the way that I learned the language. And I'm just saying, you know what, can we just delete that? You can't do that easily. And sometimes even when you do it, the traces will be still there, and you'll come back. Your brain will reconnect to some of these ideas when you haven't practiced that for a long period of time. Think about bicycling. And then we learn that that's on our subconscious mind. And we are asking to change a habit. So if you want to really change the results in here, what we are talking about, you got to then change the habit. And if you want to change the habit, it is incredibly difficult. And how do we do that is effectively the difference between knowing and doing. And that's exactly what we are talking about here. So just to say, these habits are for generational. The food that I eat, I didn't choose. I ate that food when I was a child. I don't know why I ate that food, or my parents didn't know why they ate the food. My grandparents didn't know why they ate the food. We all ate the food because that's what, that's kind of the norm, and we just follow each other, don't we? And that's what we are talking about. And a final example before I just give you a bit more clarity on this knowing and doing gap is, let's say your dominant hand, your right, is your right hand. You're writing every day with the right hand. And then you learned it, and it's unconsciously you'll be able to write. Now if somebody asks you to come on, now write with your left hand. Imagine how you feel the first time you write with your left hand. Because you're programmed to write with your right hand. And now suddenly, this is change management, ladies and gentlemen. Change management is not just talking about models. Change management is not talking about, what we are saying. Change management is changing human behavior. And changing human behavior can only be understood if we can understand who we are and how the world works and how we work. And the way we work, we are a combination of millions and millions of people in this world. There's 8 billion people, the human population is, and they all are interconnected. And how do they all work together to produce the results? And all of them are individually different as well. So it's a complex methodology. But in order for us to make any change, you really need to understand who we are and how the human behavior works, how the human potential work, and these are all connected to the neuroscience and biology and psychology and all the rest of it. These are scientific evidence there. And again, this is not the mind. This is a diagram that I am just using it, and the mind is in every cell of the body. Mind is energy, and therefore, but you need a diagram to explain what the mind is and to explain how truly you can bring the change management. Just going back to the idea of the change, what we are talking about. If we really want to change, and I'm really trying to do my best, and please don't accept that I have mastered this any shape or form. Perhaps I have got in my conscious mind, not entirely in my subconscious mind, because I'm programmed like all of us. I was programmed, when I was born in 1970 in Sri Lanka, in the town of Sri Lanka, and then I came here and I programmed differently in the last 30 years, but I am programmed, and who I am, what I have achieved, and the results up to now is my programming up to. That does not mean my future results need to be the same, because I can make a conscious decision to change. Because once you are in this subconscious mind, everything is subconscious. Think about that. If you are writing with your right hand, and that's your dominant hand, And if I ask you to write now, you're not going to think, okay, I'm going to put this word. You're not. You're just going to do it. Just think about it. If I ask you to just bicycle, you're not going to say, okay, I'm going to put this like that. Like, no, you just do it. Because it's gone to your subconscious mind. And now if I ask you on the right example, write with your left hand, you need to think, but you can if you want to train. And if that's a choice for you, then you can. But the trick is how this subconscious mind works, how the change happens. We can only, according to a lot of research says, change 1 or 2 habits at a time. We can't change all of them straight away. So you will have to look at your results. And I'm talking in the context of commercial success, business success here. You can apply that to personal as well. But here, the focus very much is on business and organization and how in this COVID-19 time that you can deal with. You look at the results and say, I don't like that results. Whatever that results may be, it could be a profitability of a company, it could be a liquidity in your balance sheet, or it could be your customer satisfaction, or it could be your growth, or whatever. Or suddenly your sector has changed, and you say, I don't like the results what I'm getting since 23rd of March. And you say, what do I do? The only way to change the results is you take an action. If you want to take an action, you go to your subconscious mind and you say, okay, then which is not working for me? We know the answer. I mean, that's one thing is good about us, because we know what is working and what is not working, but we might not tell somebody else that is the case. We might not even tell our partners. We might not even tell our children. We might not, but we know the inner truth. We know this is why we are not able to produce the result. And if you don't know, and if you're genuinely complacent about that, that's okay. There are a number of things, I don't know because I haven't given awareness to that. I haven't given energy to that. And therefore, there might be times for me to think about, okay, why? But then you can go back to the results. The results will talk. There's no way you can say, and please, and in this model, and I am learning this as well, we cannot blame others. We cannot blame COVID-19. We cannot blame, that's why our company is in this position. You cannot blame customers are not buying a product. There is another way, because your results is not there. And then you take a different action. When you take that different action, the nature will give it back. That reaction will change you the results. So therefore, this is a beautiful concept. And I think whilst that we are spending a lot of time about the knowing and doing it, whilst we're talking, it is all about habits. Think about Stephen Covey. He's one of the greatest authors in any management school or any MBA program or any management leadership training you go, you learn. I mean, he talks about the 7 habits of successful people. Then he wrote about the 8th habit. And what is he talking about? He's talking about the paradigms. So you can call it habits, you can call it paradigms, you can call it the way you do things, you can say, wrapped up in culture sometimes. Culture can be easily wrapped up because this is one individual, and if you have sort of 3 other individuals, if all of them get together in an organization, you say you've got an organizational culture. Organizational culture is what? Is norms, expectations, and values within the organization. The way you treat your customers, the way you look at issues, your natural values, your laws of nature, and all of that is culture. So the culture is effectively back again into this basic diagram of human beings. Without humans, there is no culture. If you just take everybody out of an organization, that organization is a building. Think about that. Even if it is for hundreds and hundreds of years has gone in, if you take every human being out of that, if a new team comes in, those buildings cannot be. But those cultures are embedded by certain values, and that's where the religious connotation comes in, and it's very complex sometimes because it's deep rooted into the organization, and sometimes when you come back into the organization, even though it is a brand new team, they always go back and look at that cultural issue and see how they can do things. But again, these are incredibly complex human matters. As I said in my previous lesson, this is a complex machine. Incredibly complex, not just on the physiological and the way the whole blood system works and all the rest of it, but how the mind works. I mean, that's the mental health issues we are trying to solve, and there are so many issues which is wrapped up around this very simple idea of hacking how the knowing and doing work. So think about a couple of ideas. I'm working on a couple of them, and it's damn hard. It's absolutely not easy. If it is easy, everybody else will do it. The people who have mastered the ability to change their habits, whatever that habits are or whatever you want to change, who are very, very successful. And those successful people are creating success for the good for the organizations, good for the world, good for the community. And therefore, this is a very, very useful concept. Thank you for listening, and I'll be sort of sharing a lot more information. And on my next lesson, I'll be perhaps also sharing this concept I am working, and I've been talking about the software and the hardware of an organization. A software of an organization is the people. The hardware of the organization, the structures, the cultures, the way we work. And there are incredibly useful models, which I have referred previously, and then some of the models which are used in Stanford University, which identifies the knowing and the doing gap in the context of opportunity gap, in the context of an area where we are not really doing very well in that a performance gap that we call about. So these are the hardware and software piece of it. And if you connect these hardware and software pieces, the computer starts to work. And my view is just knowing the hardware alone, it's not enough, and not knowing the software alone is not the fact, because this phone which is recording me, which has got a hardware and a software, and if I don't have the hardware, I will not be able to even switch on, because it's the physical part of this computer, which we call phone. And I don't even call it phone, I call it handheld device, and I call it. And then the software part is, constantly comes and tells me every time they're upgrading the software because of various things. And without that software, this phone doesn't work. And that's exactly the comparison. I just bring that to the human parts of an organizational behavior, and also the other issue of the structure within the organization behavior. And then again, I sometimes started to question. People say organizational behavior, and I just post and think, is it organizational behavior or is it human behavior collectively? But we use in our business courses in MBAs, organizational behavior, organizational culture. But an organization is a collection of people. So whilst we say it's organizational behavior, we must understand behind every organization there's a collection of people. And behind that people, there's always a leader. And that leader makes a big difference to the organization. And when that leader changes, the organizational behavior changes. And think about it, it could be a football analogy, or it could be a cricket team analogy. It's sometimes when the manager changes, and then the performance of the team sometimes changes. So these are incredibly interesting times, and we'll be continuously sending our hashtag Regent Pankaj lessons, and I'm sure rest of my team are doing a fantastic job, and they're all very excited about the hashtag Regent, and we will be flooding the YouTube with various lessons, and therefore you can enjoy and learn a lot. And see you on the next lesson. Thank you very much.